A lot of times people think that addicts are weak, and that's just simply not the case. It takes a strong person to be an addict. Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Jen, and this is my channel. So since we're not having weigh-in Wednesdays right now, I still wanted to do a kind of more serious update and talk about how I'm feeling and what I'm going through at the moment, and just kind of talking. I don't really do a lot of talking about how I feel. I talk about my weight and what I'm eating and how I'm going to lose weight, but I don't really talk a lot about my emotional state. And that is a big part of my journey as well. So I wanted to include a little bit of that on my channel. So there have been quite a few comments in my videos when I talk about food addiction. I have an eating disorder. I am a binge addict. I am a compulsive overeater. And I have toyed back and forth over the years with bulimia. I've never really gotten the hang of that because I find comfort in the full feeling and the feeling of eating large amounts of food, not necessarily getting rid of it. So I'm not here to tell you the clinical reasons for addiction or the scientific reasons for it or the brain chemistry behind it. I'm just here to talk about my experience with addiction and how it has affected my life and how it currently affects my life. So like I was saying, I've had quite a few people in the comments when I've mentioned addictions and food addiction, they have either said that they don't think food is an addiction, or they think that addiction is not really a thing, that you can just stop it when you want to. And I'm here to tell you that coming from someone, and I'm going to try not to cry because this is a very emotional thing for me, coming from someone who has struggled with being a compulsive overeater and addiction for many, many years, I would say probably since I was a child, I struggled with addiction. And I didn't know back then, I didn't know clear up until my mid-20s what food addiction was and that it was an actual thing. So back in my early days of becoming obese and gaining weight, I was always a chubby child, and I started just gaining weight from there. In the early days, one of my coping mechanisms I've talked about being abused, and one of my coping mechanisms was food. After I was abused, after my father abused me, he would make me a bologna sandwich and then put me back to bed. So I looked forward to as sad as it is, I looked forward to that bologna sandwich after the pain, because it was something that soothed the pain, because there was something to look forward to afterwards. So it became a quick thing that I learned, that food could soothe pain, and food was a coping mechanism. So there were times all growing up that I remember eating a lot of food because I was hurt or confused, and it was very difficult for me to discern between being actually hungry and just eating the food because it felt good. I don't think I ever knew what it was like to actually be hungry. I just ate because it was there and because it was available and because it made me feel good. As I got older, into my teen years, I think I've shared this before, the day my mom talked about, or the day that my mom told me about her and my dad getting divorced, things became really volatile in my home, and then the physical abuse, after the sexual abuse kind of like stopped for a while, it was physical abuse. And then when my mom realized that he was physically abusing me, because there was one time where I was kicked down our basement steps he kicked me down my basement steps with a pair of steel-toed boots on. And I remember when I landed at the bottom of the steps on the cement floor, I couldn't move for a couple moments, and of course I was only about 8 or 9 at the time, and I didn't realize what paralysis is or anything at that time. But looking back now, I thought I was paralyzed because I just couldn't move. Eventually I was able to move, but I was very sore. And the story that was told to my mom was that I just fell down the steps. So when that kept going on, when my mom realized that I was having all these accidents when she wasn't around and that it was actually abuse, one of the last times was when my dad slapped me across the back and I had a handprint in my back for quite a long time. So that's when my parents separated, and my mom kicked him out of the house, of course. And the night that I remember very clearly, sitting on my living room floor, we were eating Domino's pizza, and I asked my mom if her and my dad were getting divorced. And she said yes, they were. And I remember eating the whole pizza. It was one of those deals where it was like buy one, get one for free or whatever the deal was, but we had had 2 pizzas. And I remember finishing the entire pizza that night because I just wanted to eat away the pain and the confusion that I felt, because on one aspect I felt this big relief and all this happiness that the pain of being abused was finally over. But then I was also sad because there were times when my family was happy and there were times when he was a good dad, and we actually did positive things together. And I'm sure for someone who has not been abused or someone who doesn't understand abuse, that can be really confusing to someone when you say that you miss someone that abused you. It's not the actual abuse that you miss, it's just what that person represents in your life. And that was my dad. And I didn't know any different. So after that, food started becoming a focal point in my life to deal with the confusion and the hurt and even the happiness. So I just ate and ate and ate. And aside from that, food was always a big part of my family. There are overweight people in my family, a lot of overweight people in my family, and food was just, that's how you showed love in my family. So combine those two together, and just the fact that food tastes good, it was just a big problem, obviously. So I just continued gaining weight. That's when I started gaining weight very rapidly, is in my early teens, around 12, 13, and it just increased from there. And for people who don't understand addiction, I have had so many years of learning my addiction and learning how to cope with things through food. It takes a lot now to retrain my brain into an excess amount of food will not help me in any way. It's actually hurting me. And even though I logically know that, there's still a part of my brain who tries to tell me that the food will fix everything. And like I said, for people who have never had an addiction or have never struggled with food addiction, it's very hard to understand. And I don't blame anybody for thinking it's just a bunch of crap and that it's a lie. When people say, I have had hundreds and hundreds of comments of people telling me to try this diet, that diet, if you were serious about losing weight, you would do this. My obesity is not just a food thing. If it was just the fact of eating less, of eating the right things, I wouldn't be obese. The act of losing weight is not a difficult process. Anybody can eat less and lose weight. It's the emotional thing for me that goes into wanting to eat more. even when I'm not hungry. So that emotional, the addiction is what keeps feeding me and keeps me obese. A lot of times when people have a disease, they show the aspects of it, like somebody who has cancer, like if they have treatment for their cancer, their hair falls out, or they get very thin, or they have different symptoms of the cancer. I My symptoms of my eating disorder is my excess weight. All this excess weight is just a symptom of what's wrong with me on the inside. And it's not a disease that anybody can see, and they just see the fat and they think that you're lazy, you like to eat. I mean, of course you like to eat. I mean, food is good. There's a lot of people who like to eat but aren't obese. But if somebody could walk in my shoes for just a day, and not necessarily my body, but just my head, my brain, and experience addiction, it would be so much easier for other people to understand if they could experience it just for a short time. The past 2 days actually, I have been struggling really hard with wanting to binge. I've not binged, I've not overeaten. Having my meal preps has really helped me stay on track and not binge. But the only thing I can liken addiction to is this deep itch inside my brain. And sometimes it is just it hurts so bad. And it's not a physical hurt, but it's like a voice inside my brain, and not like a mental disorder. I don't actually hear a voice, but it's like this. I guess, okay, we'll go back to the itch thing. It's this itch deep inside your brain that you can't get to, that you can't scratch to make it go away. The only thing that makes it go away is excess food. And I know that that sounds completely insane to some people, but it is an actual thing. It is the actual truth. And there are times when the more I try to ignore that itch, that voice that tells me I need to eat, need to eat, need to eat, need to eat, the more I try to ignore it, the louder it becomes, and the more it itches, and the more I feel like I need to just dig inside my brain to make it stop. And the harder it is to concentrate on other things. And so sometimes I sleep so I can avoid that feeling, but then when I wake up, I start having that feeling all over again. And then that trips me into a panic attack and anxiety, because I know if I give in to that, that's just keeping me sick and keeping me from losing weight and keeping me ultimately from being able to have the surgery I need to save my life. And the addiction plays a huge role in several conditions that I have, and it, like the anxiety, cancer, it's compounding things, and it's making things more complicated than they really would have to be. Fortunately, today has been an easier day. I have used some of the tools that I've learned in OA and from therapy to try to relieve that obsession and addictive feeling that I needed to eat. And it's not necessarily that I needed to eat a specific food, it's just I need to eat a lot of food no matter what it is. I could binge on a salad, or I could binge on broccoli. It's just the need to feel that fullness and that relief that comes when I eat a large quantity of food. There have been a lot of people who have posted on the video that I posted that what I really eat in a day, what a morbidly obese woman really eats in a day, because they say, well, that's not an accurate depiction of how you got to be the size you are. No, that was not how I got to be the size I am. The reality of how much I would eat to become the size I am is extremely concerning, and I would be highly embarrassed to post that on the internet, or I'm embarrassed for anyone to know how much that I can truly eat during a binge. It literally makes me physically ill to the point where I don't want to even move because I feel like if I move, I'm going to throw up. To the point of eating a whole pizza, breadsticks, wings, a 2 liter of pop, and then cookies or brownies for dessert, like the whole thing, not leaving anything behind. And I get so sick, but even in that sickness, there's a calmness. My brain is calm. I feel like everything is fine. But in reality, it just made it 10 times worse. So luckily, the past couple days, I've been able to not binge and not overeat. Like I said, the food prep has helped a huge amount. And there are people that don't understand that either, that they want to know, if I have all the time in the world, why can't I just cook my meals every single day, and why do I have to eat prepped meals? And it has nothing to do with having time. It's because the more I have to think about food, the more I have to make the food, the worse it is for me, because I want to make a large quantity of food. This way, when I cook once, I portion out my food, and that's what I take out, and that's what I eat. So that has really helped me. Another thing that has really helped me is I've been crocheting a lot. I've had a lot of people ordering crochet items, journaling, and doing my planner that I was so dearly gifted. It has helped a lot to keep my mind occupied, to try to ease that itch and to make it go away. So luckily today is a better day. It's still there, but it's not as bad as it has been the past couple of days. So I just wanted to let you guys know a little bit about that. I don't talk a lot about addiction on my channel anymore. I did it in the very beginning, and then I kind of withdrew a little bit because I wanted to focus more on the positive. But I don't want to depict a perfect journey, because this journey is not perfect. I want this to be a reality of my life. And the reality is, food addiction is extremely difficult. And I know that there will be times when I give in to my addiction. I'm not using that as an excuse to do it. I'm just the reality of the situation. There will be times when I'm not able to cope, and there will be times that I binge. But the thing is, I'm not giving up, and I am not going to let that make me want to keep eating badly continuously. So hopefully this has given you a little bit of insight to an addiction and an eating disorder. Like I said, this isn't any kind of clinical definition of addiction or how the brain works or why it works. This is just personal experience of what I've went through and what I go through. And I can have days or even weeks where my food addiction is kind of in the background and I don't think about it. But then there are days where I obsess over it, like this past couple days. I don't know why that is. I don't have any added stress or my life there's been no big changes in my life for the past couple days that would have triggered it. It's just kind of like an allergy that comes up and it's activated, and now it's kind of going back to sleep again. And when it does go back to sleep, it's such a relief and such a good feeling, and it makes me so happy that I don't have to deal with it anymore, because it is miserable. It is extremely miserable, and it's something I wouldn't wish on anybody. Like I said, I don't know what it's like to be a drug addict. I don't know what it's like to be an alcoholic. But I do know what it is to be a food addict. And I have said before, and this isn't making any kind of other addictions any less, but for an alcoholic and a drug addict, they can put those things down and never pick it up again. But with food, I have to eat every single day. I have to make my meals. I have to eat my meals. And it's a constant balance of what is enough and what is too much that's going to trip that feeling inside me. if I eat a little bit too much and I start feeling that feeling, I want to keep eating to feel better and better and better. So it's a continual game that I play, a strategy of how to get things just right in my life. And being on a food plan and eating on that food plan and my prep food helps a lot in that area. So, like I said, I hope this kind of sheds a little bit of light on addiction for people, like a real look at addiction, not something you read in a textbook or some brochure about addiction. This is real life. And like I said, I normally put out positive videos about how good things are going, but I don't want to make that to depict that life is perfect when I'm struggling. I'm not perfect. My journey is not perfect. I'm just learning as I go through life, and I'm learning as I move closer to where I'm supposed to be. I want to be on the right path in life. I don't feel I'm quite there on the right path yet. I feel I'm very close to being on the right path, emotionally and spiritually. I think that the more I can conquer my addictions, the closer I get to being on that path, and it makes me feel a lot better where I'm at. I'm so happy. I've been so happy the past few weeks with my channel doing so well and being able to create content for people that people are enjoying and helping others. This is really helping me, and it is making me feel so much better. And I have found such happiness and in sharing my life with everyone. People have asked me why I do it when I get hate, but it's not for the hate, because that doesn't matter. What matters is that there are people out there. I get emails and messages of people telling me how much I've inspired them and how much I've helped them. And that means the world to me, because that is my deepest desire in life, is to help other people. So you guys are helping me, even if you don't realize it. So thank you all so much for following me. I'm up to 16,000 subscribers now. Crazy. But I'm very happy, and I thank you all for the part of my happiness that you are bringing to my life. I will talk to you all again soon. Have a good day, everyone.